Welcome, everybody, to a special edition of 100 Yards of Football. It's so special, we're not even going to talk about football. This is going to be our basketball edition, and we're going to have a conversation today that there are no wrong answers. So I'm glad when you go to high school or college exams and there's no wrong answers. The professor or teacher usually would give me an X for marking the spot where I missed it, but not today. Along with Vincent Turner and our producer, Logan Landers, our special guest, Bryan Spencer, is going to join us today. And we're going to have a topic. We're going to talk about who is the greatest of all time. We're going to stick with the NBA on this one, but who's the greatest point guard of all time? As I mentioned, Vincent Turner, Bryan Spencer. Vincent, let's start with you. How did we come across this type of a topic, and how did we end up getting Bryan to be one of our special guests? Your relationship is a very unique one.
Well, basically, I might be a football fan, but I love college basketball. And of course, I love the NBA. And I had an opportunity some years ago to meet this very talented young man who was at the time was a basketball coach. And we just got to talking, and he kind of knew where I was coming from because I'm a diehard University of Memphis fan, a.k.a. Memphis State. Keith Lee fan, and then of course he's a diehard Syracuse fan, and we talking about all the players that played in the league. So that's how this came about. This is why we got this topic today, and we're glad that we got you on because you're from California, and of course you're a Lakers fan. So it's just so nice and so great today that we're gonna have this topic. And then when you look at all the point guards that played in the NBA, honestly, there's a lot of point guards that we don't talk about that set the tone for the guys of the day. See, Steph Curry needs to hear this. Chris Paul needs to hear this. Because in my era, there was a lot of great point guards that play in the NBA. And of course, y'all can agree to me with that fact.
Yeah, well, the fact that you and Bryan ended up becoming friends. Bryan, how does that happen where a guy from Memphis, that loves talking about Memphis, that will never leave Memphis in terms of his fandom, and you, a Syracuse guy, how did that relationship begin? And what are some of the features and the highlights of that relationship that you've had with Vincent?
Yeah, man. Me and my wife were going to a high school football game, and we stopped at this cafe to get a little something to
U.S.
eat.
Cafe.
U.S. Cafe, yeah. And I was talking to this kid. I always talk to kids, man. They look like they're athletes. So I was talking to this kid, man, and after I finished talking to him, Vince just came up to me and he struck the conversation with me. And so I just invited him to sit down and eat with me and my wife. And we've been talking ever since, man. And so listen, I've never met, he's the first person that I met that knows the history of sports better than me. Like, now I don't know, I don't keep up with it like I did then. I'm not good with the history now, but back then when I met him, he's the first person I said, man, this guy knows more about the history of sports than I do. So that's what drew me to him, man. And he keeps it going every day, man.
Well, Bryan, give us a little bit of your background too. I know Vincent has said off the air there's some things, but this goes back a little bit with you. This is part of the family, isn't it?
Yeah, most definitely, man. I'm the son of a coach, man. My father was the first black football coach in the history of both Cornell and Syracuse University. So I grew up in that environment. Him and my mother were both educators. So education and athletics has always been a very important part of my life, even though I didn't always take it, as seriously as I should have. But it was definitely important in our lives, man. I was just fortunate to grow up in just a rich environment, man. Just, Bayheim and all those Syracuse teams, great Syracuse football players, Art Monk and coaches, Nick Saban, Tom Coughlin. Like, I've been around all that stuff, man. And when I got out of the military and my son became the age where he could play, I just started. I wasn't really honestly, I wasn't even trying to coach. The park that my son went to, they wouldn't let him play because they said he was too little. So I took him to another park, and they said we were too late, and but they needed a coach. And that's the only way they was going to let my son play is if I coached. And that's how I started coaching, man. Wasn't even trying to do it. But once I did my first year, I just fell in love with it and just been coaching ever since, man. That was 1998. And I've been coaching ever since.
Was your father a big part of coaching you, or was he already coaching at, you mentioned Cornell and Syracuse, to where he couldn't coach you growing up because he was doing other things? And then are there parts of what you did when you were coaching that you learned from your dad that was able to be passed on to the youngsters, not only your own son, but the others that you were a part of the coaching staff for?
Yeah, Harper, that's a great question, man. My dad didn't coach me until I think like my ninth grade year, my summer league.
Okay.
He coached my summer league baseball team, and took he took a baseball team that we had that couldn't win any games. Over the summer, we played those same high school teams, man. We was killing everybody. And what I learned from him was coaching is just teaching. Like it's not hollering, yelling, and screaming. It's teaching, man. Like you got to know the little intricate things of the game to give your players an advantage. And that's what what I love about my dad is he taught me how to win with less talent. And that's what I learned from him, man. And that's what I, took with me as I started coaching. I said, I got to be able to beat the best teams no matter what type of talent that I have.
What an interesting perspective. And I've always thought of it this way. Each team is going to make mistakes, but the one that makes fewer, or the ones that works to correct the mistakes that they make, has a better chance to win in the long run, because they see that there's an error that was made. And I'm not just talking baseball, any type of sport.
Right.
You make mistakes, you make errors. And then if you correct them and make fewer, then it doesn't matter if you're going against a team that has a lot more talent. If they make mistakes, guess what? You have a chance to win the game.
Right. I agree. And that's the teaching part that I'm talking about. Like I can remember watching those Syracuse teams practice, and because when he was coaching, I was playing like Pop Warner, and so my coaches was doing a whole bunch of hollering, yelling, and screaming. But when I would go to their practices, they were teaching. The yelling took place, but they were teaching. And so when I would be with my coaches who were coaching me, and then having the conversations that my dad would have with me, sitting down and just talking to me, one, I knew a lot of the younger coaches, recreational coaches, didn't know what my dad knew at the level that he knew it.
Yes. Yep.
Right. They didn't know at the level that he knew it. And they tried to make up for it with yelling and screaming. And so my whole identity as a coach has been, let me teach my guys, let me love on my guys, let them know that I care, because I truly care about them more than this game, that we just use the game as a way to impact their lives in a positive way so they can go out and become productive citizens in life. And the game just affords us the opportunity to do that.
Wow. Well, yeah, that touches me personally, because I've always put it this way: you can't teach what you do not know.
That's right.
It's just a real simple thing. And if someone's yelling at me because I did it wrong, I'd sometimes put my hands out. This is when you have your thumbs out like that. If you can see it, that to me is the international symbol. Kids, adults, it doesn't matter what part of the world you're from, and you shrug, I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
Right.
Help me, correct me, teach me the right way to do it. Don't just yell at me. Show me what I'm doing wrong, and let me work on getting better. I want to know what my weaknesses are, and you can improve drastically if you reduce the amount of mistakes, as we said a few moments ago. Well, Vincent, what a pleasure to introduce Bryan. The fact that you two became friends, I know it's goofy. You have different opinions on things, but that doesn't matter. A friend knows everything about you. A friend knows all of your habits, the good ones and the bad ones. And a friend knows the bad ones especially, and still likes you anyways. So even though we're going to talk about Memphis a little bit, we have to when we're on with Vincent. The fact that you bring on such a wonderful guest like Bryan, we love it. We're here to talk a little bit about basketball. Vincent, why don't you begin today by saying how you came up with the idea of just having the discussion, how we're going to talk about some of the great players of all time and who ends up on your Mount Rushmore in terms of greatest point guards in NBA history.
Well, when I came up with this topic, and I always say it's a thing today that my uncle always taught me back in Memphis, Tennessee. I hate to keep referring to my uncle Opie Turner, who's probably going to watch this video today. He always says, surround yourself with people more talented than you. people that can push you. So the gentleman on the screen right there, he trying to look tough, but I know he want to laugh when I say this guy coached basketball at a high level and he's talented. Because there's times when I might be watching the game, or we had conversations at 2 or 3 in the morning, real serious talk on my life, and I call him up, and Brian would answer the phone, and I would ask him, "Hey man, what's going on behind the scenes? What's happening over here?" So today I just said, you know what? Let me bring some talented people together. And then I look at you, Harper. You played in the league for what, 11 years. Let me get that correct. Plus, you went to one of the top high schools in LA, Notre Dame High School. And you was a personal friend of Jamie Dixon, who me and this young man talk about all the time. When we talk about coaches, it's a match made in heaven. So when you got a match made in heaven, it makes for good conversation. It makes for real serious talk. And we're not going to tell no lies here. We're going to tell facts today. That's just simple. We're not going to be shouting. We're not going to be saying, I think, my personal opinion. We're not going to be at no games, no cameras around a lot of people. We're just in the confines of our home, and we're going to put it out there. We ain't got to be at no NBA game and say, oh, Trae Young's a great point guard. Well, we don't really know what it takes to be a great point guard. See, Brian knows that. And you know that because you went to high school, one of the best coaches right now, Jamie Dixon, who came over from Pitt, who's now doing an outstanding job at TCU.
Yeah.
So that answers your question, Mr. Harper LeBel.
Well, Brian, where do we start when it comes to the greatest point guard? And I'm going to call him a 1 of all time. Do we start with Bob Cousy and go from there with the number of championships, and then we find a different way of developing? I mean, would I mentioned Mount Rushmore? And again, there's no wrong answers, but is that a place to start, at least in terms of he was one of the few to set the direction? There's others that are much better. I get it. They scored more points. They were more athletic. But would you at least say we're going to start in one direction that one of the greatest of all time would be Bob?
Well, I think you bring up a great point, man, because when you start talking about the best, you really can only have that conversation in terms of eras, and in his era, Bob Cousy was definitely one of the best point guards in the game, and the game evolves. So who knows what Bob Cousy would have been in this era with the type of training and development and all that the players get now. So, if you're going to start with that, have a conversation about point guards, you can definitely start with Bob Cousy and then evolve as the generations go. For me, I'll just throw out a couple names that everybody knows, but then at the end, I'm gonna throw somebody out there that I don't think anybody thought of. Of course, you have to go with Oscar Robertson, is one of the best. John Stockton is one of the best. Isaiah Thomas rather is one of the best. Today's era is going to say Russell Westbrook, depending on who you talk to. Steph Curry as the best point. But in my opinion, man, I mean, I'm a Magic Johnson guy, and a lot of people they'll take Isaiah over Magic because Isaiah is more flashy. The Magic
That guy right there with
that guy at the top corner.
that guy right there.
Yeah, and Isaiah was a better shooter than Magic, without question. Towards the end of Magic's career, he developed that set shot that you could count on, right? But I believe Magic was just a better leader, in my opinion. People will say that Magic walked into a ready-made team, and that's true. But you also have to say that he was the youngest man on that ready-made team, and he had to lead veterans. And you're talking about a 19-year-old kid coming up in the NBA professional league, having to lead grown men who all have egos, who are at the best at what they do, and now they got to listen to some 19-year-old kid who thinks he's I think there's something that comes with leading people that are already accomplished. not to discredit anything, because Isaiah was my guy. Right? Isaiah was my guy. But I think you have to give Magic a lot of credit for taking leadership of a team that is already established and very high accomplished players at such a young age.
Vincent, it's hard to argue that, but I know you're an Isaiah guy. Tell me why.
Let me start with this. First and foremost, let's get Magic's age correct. He was 20 when he got with the Lakers, so he wasn't 19. Let's get that correct first. Some of my point guards that I like in my history, and I'm going to throw some names out there. Of course, Isaiah is 1A always with me. Earl the Pearl Monroe, Clyde Frazier, and of course, I think if the gentleman when it got hurt, I'm not saying where his career would have went, but of course, Penny Hardaway in his first few years was better than no guard that came in this league from a passing ability and an athletic ability. And then, of course, Earl the Pearl Monroe. Reason I'm taking Isaiah number one is that he played under a very stern coach in college in Bobby Knight. It's not too many people that can play with Bobby Knight in college and won a national championship as a sophomore. Then he gets to the NBA, to the worstest franchise in all in the NBA, and they've been bad for years, the Detroit Pistons. So he had to get players to be more confident in his ability. They had to build the team around him. Now, for Bryan to sit here today and say that it doesn't mean nothing that he went to a stacked team, where the Lakers have always had history. They was winning championships in the 60s with Chamberlain, Baylor, the logo, who y'all give me a problem with, who I didn't name, the great Jerry West that went to the heavens a couple of weeks ago. So when you come into a team, you got arguably maybe the greatest player ever in Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Then you got Jamal Wilkes. Then you got a very good guard that Norm Nixon don't get credit for. And then throughout your years, you drafted James Worthy, one of the top 5 point power forwards. Yes, your team is stacked. While Isaiah, they had to build within. They had to get guards like Vinnie Johnson, Joe Dumas. They had to wait and build for the draft. And he played 4 or 5 years on bad teams. And then when Isaiah got there, they were still regulating the Kelly Tripucka. So the Pistons had to build from in. But once they got there and they got on that stage, you saw what happened. And I'm taking Isaiah all day, Mr. Isaiah Thomas, over Magic because of 2 things. He was a way much better shooter, way much floor general. He was a pure point guard. Well, Magic, he had a stacked team. He had everything in place, an excellent organization, an excellent owner in Jerry Buss. So Bryan can say, well, it takes a young man to go in there and I get all that. But yet still, you had the cream of the creams. You had the best center in the league, Kareem. You had the best power forward, Worthy. And when you look at the overall talent, the Pistons weren't really all that talent. Vinnie Johnson was a decent player. Joe Dumas was an excellent player. Okay, James Edwards was an excellent player at center. I will give you this. Isaiah had the best rebound in the game and Dennis Rodman. But come on, man. John Sally, getting Mark Aguirre in his career, and then you looking at the Lakers when Magic has got Brian Scott, Worthy, Cooper, Jabbar. Come on, man. But I'm taking Isaiah Thomas basically because I thought he was a better floor general and he was a better shooter at that time. Don't get me wrong, Magic Johnson, I'm not in no way disrespecting his talent. But for me, the greatest point guard ever played this game, and I'm going to stay stern on it, is Isaiah Thomas by way of Chicago, Indiana University, the Detroit Pistons. And he developed, I want to say, history legacy that we're not going to ever remember. Bad boys, bad boys, bad boys.
All right, Bryan, he threw a lot at you right there. How are you going to respond? If we were in a court of law, do you want to do piece by piece?
Yeah, well, you know, he did a little Charles Barkley, man. He said the same thing over and over a couple of times. So I don't know how many times you're gonna say that Kareem was the best. I know all that. You said it about 3 or 4 times, Barkley. But I'm gonna go to your stack team. All right, definitely ain't no question about the Lakers were stacked. No question at all. However, the point that you made to me are more reflective of Chuck Daly's imprint on the team than on Isaiah Thomas. Chuck Daly orchestrated that team around Isaiah and his ability to coach a team which was less talented than maybe the Lakers. All right. Now the Eastern Division was more physical and more half court, beat you up, brutal than the West Coast style of ball. But I give more credit of what you said to Chuck Daly than I do to Isaiah Thomas. Now, Magic was the perfect fit for what the Lakers did. Fast break basketball. 80 foot full court bounce passes. Half court alley-oop passes. Get guys to fill the break. They just built the team around what Magic did when you start talking about drafting guys like James Worthy. I got the best point guard in the league in terms of running the fast break. So let me get people around him like Worthy that can fill those lanes. I can see it right now, Magic coming down and doing this, and here comes Worthy. I mean, they just surrounded him with what he needed to exemplify his talents. Isaiah, come up under Bobby Knight, tough, hard-nosed coaching. Detroit, tough, hard-nosed city. They played a tough, hard-nosed brand of basketball the Detroit fans would like. Isaiah was a tough, hard-nosed type of guy. And so his personality fit what Detroit did. Magic's personality fit what LA did. Now, my point is this. You are who you are, whether you in the home, on the court, in the classroom, on vacation, you are who you are. Magic Johnson hasn't just won 5 NBA championships. Magic Johnson is one of the most successful businessmen there is. Every team that he's touched has won. The LA Dodgers won. What's the women's team out there? The Sparks won. I think and now he's with the Redskins, and you see what they're doing. Magic Johnson is a proven winner. That's what he does. And I know you're gonna come up with this. Detroit was old and all this other stuff. Man, listen here. Magic Johnson was the best for a decade. 5 rings. 5 rings. They didn't have 5 rings with them same cast of players that you talked about before he got there. Right? He taught them not only to win, but he taught them how to have fun doing it. He's the absolute, you talk about leadership and floor general, he's the best to ever do that. And he's still doing it in the business world today.
Okay.
Vincent, your chance to respond here, and then I want to ask both of you a question. So Vincent, please respond now, and then I'm going to take a little control of this, if you don't mind. Go ahead.
I thought we were sticking just to basketball. We didn't. When we started this debate, did we have to say we was going to bring up personal accomplishments outside the game? We talking about basketball. We're not talking about business related over here and all this. We're talking about basketball. I thought that. Now, you misunderstood my point, Coach Spencer. I didn't say about him being Showtime. I said pure point guard. Ability to run a team. Ability to run sets. Of course, Magic Johnson, it's no question about it. He was Showtime. He had a very athletic team. So I understand, but when I say pure point guard, and get this fact right, too. Even though Magic won 5, Isaiah won 2. Could have won 3. But remember this. The reason that he had so many problems, and we sticking to basketball because we ain't going to outside business accomplishments. Who was he going against every year? The greatest in the game that you say, Michael Jordan, Barkley, Bird, McHale. So when we argue on the point, let's talk about the teams they were facing. I think it was much easier over in the West for Magic. So look what Isaiah had to go against. But I'm going to stay with my point since you say I'm Mr. Barkley today. Okay, I'm Vincent Turner Barkley. So I don't have no problem with that. I'm still staying with Isaiah being the best because I think it was a better all-around running the offense, better overall shooting the ball, and he had to be an excellent shooter with the team he had. I wish I had a Kareem in the middle. I wish I had a Worthy. I wish I had a Michael Cooper who could go out and defend a Bird or a Jordan night in and night out. I wish I had a Byron Scott. I wish I had an AC Green who was a guy who was an all-team player. But look what Isaiah had. Head case, Dennis Rodman. Joe Dumas was, I want to say, great shooter. But come on. Vinnie Johnson wasn't nothing but a shooter. He wasn't an outstanding defensive player. John Sally was a rebounder. But come on, man. Come on. And let's stay away from what he had done off the court. We talking about whether you win on the court or not. And I'm going to stay firm with my point today. Competition, as you know, as a coach, means a lot. So who did he have to battle in the East? Everybody keeps saying every day when they had a debate between LeBron and who? Who? Can I hear it? Oh, you're not going to say nothing. Michael Jordan.
That's not a conversation.
Back to you, Mr. Harper.
All right, real quick. Let me ask you this before we get a little more heated. And good thing you don't have any passion regarding your emotion here with this, Vincent. If things were different and we put Isaiah in Los Angeles with Kareem, Keith Wilkes, Jamal Wilkes, Norm Nixon, Mark Landsberger, they had not gone to the playoffs prior to that in 5 years. They had not advanced to the finals. They went to the playoffs, excuse me.
Right.
And then you take Magic and he goes to Detroit in 1980. Let's say he becomes a Piston. Real quick, how does that turn out, Vincent?
Well, I'm agreeing with Brian because I love him. Because, see, me and him, we tell the truth. Isaiah wouldn't have been a good fit in L.A. Whole different situation to me personally. He came from a guy, Bobby Knight, that wasn't, I want to say, flash in L.A. Where Magic Johnson played under Jed Heathcote, who allowed Magic to do a lot of things. And Magic had the personality and the smile. Isaiah probably, at that time, him being 20 years old, think about this key point. He playing for a coach, Bobby Knight, that was very stern, very hard-nosed. And like Brian said, he went to the perfect city, Detroit, hard-nosed, Grammy, cars. That fitted Isaiah Thomas. Now, Magic going to Detroit, I think Magic could have went to any team in the league and really been a success because of the style of ball he played. It was that freestyle and getting up and down the floor. But no, I'm not going to sit here today and be dishonest and say Isaiah Thomas when we went to the Lakers. No, that would have been a good fit, in my opinion. He went to the perfect organization, the perfect coach. Not the perfect. I'm going to say the perfect coach, but Brian want to give Chuck Daly a lot of credit. Come on, Chuck Daly was a loser. Chuck Daly was losing when he was coaching the Cleveland Cavaliers. Come on, man. Isaiah made Chuck Daly. So I don't know where you getting that comment from. You know, when Magic went out there to L.A., I mean, basically, they had, what's the guy who got hurt? Jack McKinnon was a winner in Portland his first year. And then Pat Riley took over, and Pat Riley was a winner. So don't say, I mean, this is a bit about Chuck Daly, all this great coach. Chuck Daly wasn't, as we say, ish. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't a winner in Cleveland. So I'm going to leave it at that. That's what gets me. You want to take away from Isaiah and say it's all about Chuck Daly, but I say, I know you since you say I'm Mr. Barkley today.
Well,
real quick, Brian, before I get in, I just read Paul Westhead ended up coaching because of the injury.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. No problem. Paul Westhead said, Magic, run. Go run. Same question to you, Brian. Brian, if you had a switch and Isaiah comes to LA and Magic goes to Detroit, are we having this conversation?
Well, Harper, I think if you're the judge and you got a gavel, Vincent had already made my point for me. He already said if Magic goes to Detroit, no matter where he goes, he's gonna win. Like, you've already made my point. No matter where Magic goes, Magic's gonna win because that's who Magic is. Because Magic is a true point guard. And what is a true point guard, Vincent Turner? A true point guard, number one, is a leader. He's a coach on the floor. He's the guy on the floor that everybody wants to follow. This is what I used to teach my point guards. I used to tell them this all the time. You guys are fighting for a position. You guys are fighting for time. And I want you guys as a point guard group to be tight, right? But listen, it's one thing for me to say, okay, Vincent Turner, you're the point guard. And everybody knows that Vince is the point guard, so we're going to listen to Vince because Coach said he's a point guard. But it's another thing. For every time somebody on our team gets the ball and they looking to get the ball to you, not because Coach said it, because by your play, by your leadership, by your decision making, by what you do with the basketball, I already know I want to get the ball to you because you're the best person, the most qualified person to do what we need to do with this basketball. That's who Magic Johnson is. He's going to make the best decision. He was the floor general. I don't know where you get this. He wasn't a great floor general. What? He was the best floor general ever.
Let me ask you, can I rebuttal on that?
I don't know.
Are you done?
Harper the judge.
Brian, are you done? Brian, are you done for the moment?
I'll let him go for the moment. Yeah, let him go.
All right. We'll give you an extra timeout because of that. But, all right, go ahead, Vincent.
Okay, you saying, okay, I'm looking at Isaiah Thomas, right? Isaiah went through some years of losing with Detroit. So that means that in order, when you lose and done, it teaches you something, right? And Detroit ended up becoming a champion in the competition. But I hear you saying Magic was a leader, but last time you didn't bring up the major point since you called me Barkley today. Did Magic not get Paul Westphal fired? Did he not get Paul Westphal fired?
And so if you're gonna,
did he not get Paul Westphal fired?
So if you're gonna say that now, what you're saying is the owner believes so much in Magic and what he said that he let Paul Westhead go.
Yeah, Westhead. I'm sorry.
Right? That's what you're saying. And I'm gonna give you some more evidence of what you're talking about. Not only did he let Paul Westhead go, right? What type of contract did Magic get? Do you know that?
Did we not say we're gonna stay away from the business aspect? No, we're talking about basketball right here, son. See, that's reverse psychology here today.
No,
reverse psychology.
Am I going to give a lifetime contract to somebody that I don't trust as my point guard?
Jerry Buss was about filling the form up. He was about getting people in the arena.
Come on, man. You think Magic Johnson is the only person that has filled arenas? Allen Iverson filled arenas. He didn't get no lifetime contract. Come on, man. Ownership is about risk management. So I'm not gonna give somebody a lifetime contract to somebody that I can't trust beyond just dribbling. Come on, man. You know better than that. Magic Johnson is the supreme consummate leader. And I don't care what you say about whether or not we're going to talk about off the court. The reason that he's getting the stuff off the court is because of what he did on the court. You are who you are wherever you go. It all transfers. You know that. Harper, as an NFL player, knows that. You don't get those things because you can play. There's a whole bunch of guys that can play basketball that have not gotten what Magic got. The reason Magic got what he got because he was the absolute best at what he did on the court.
Yeah, for those that may not remember, Magic got a $25 million contract, and it was going to pay him $1 million a year. The magic of that, and I use that word pun intended, was that the amount of money that you would have to put away, and then you invest it, and then with all of the return and gains and everything like that, it was a wise contract for the Lakers in that they were able to pay a guy over an extended period of time and it wouldn't cost them that much if they had done a shorter term contract. So we'll go over the particulars with that. But you raise a very interesting point, Brian, in that the trust in the organization or from the organization in the player. I would imagine, and Vincent, I'm pretty sure you feel very confident that the trust in Isaiah was just as strong, although financially they didn't make that same commitment over that long period of time. Well, what was it about Isaiah, in your mind's eye, that helped promote him to the number one choice that you would have? Vincent, we'll start with you, and I'm going to ask the same question of Brian. So your answer, I'm very interested to hear how it is. So once again, what is it about Isaiah that put him over the top to where he's the number one for you?
Like I said, I think when he first got to the Pistons, he went to a losing organization. Then the competition he had to face year in, year out as a young player. It is not like he walked into a ready-made situation. Detroit had to get the right pieces around him, which they did. They started going to the playoffs, I want to say 87, when they made the finals. But it was a process. He went through some lean years, and then he still was able to keep improving his game year in and year out. And just to me, I just liked the ability how he ran the team, and his shooting ability was what really sets me apart than any point guard right now. Of course, Steph Curry is an excellent shooter.
Absolutely.
But those are the things that why I would rate Isaiah Thomas number one. He didn't win as many rings as Magic. I give you that. He might not have been a winner off the court. I give you that. But when you saying pure point guard in the situation, in the competition, so you can't use reverse psychology on me today. He was going against the best. You can do all that shouting. You can do all that winning. But you even say Michael Jordan, hands down, is the greatest player to ever touch the floor. Right, Brian?
Right? I say that.
No,
okay, hold on. Are you done with your thought about Isaiah? Real quick, Vincent.
Yes, I'm through.
Okay. Brian, I'm going to ask you to just think outside the box just a little bit. Why would Isaiah, in your mind's eye, even though he may not be number one, what would make him a top guard? What would make him worthy of the conversation? Give us some qualities that you recognize about him that you have to agree, or whatever your stance is. Yeah, he really was a great NBA point guard.
Yeah, no, that's a good question too, man, because I'm an Isaiah guy. You know, I'm definitely an Isaiah guy. But if you ask me for the best, I got to go with Magic. But to answer your question, he was a consummate leader. Like he did take some guys that aren't Hall of Famers, right? And even though he was a Hall of Famer, he was able to take some guys who weren't Hall of Famers and to play at an elite level against teams like the Lakers, who were laden with Hall of Fame players. So I think Isaiah was a consummate leader in his own right. I think he was a student of the game. I don't think a lot of people give these professional players the credit for how they study the game. Isaiah was a student of the game. He came up under Bobby Knight, even though it was only for 2 years. And even though Chuck Daly doesn't, qualify for Vincent as a good coach, I would argue that. I think Chuck Daly was a good coach, and great coaching doesn't always correlate with a winning record. There's a lot that goes into that. So I think Isaiah was a consummate leader. He was perfect for that city, right? He was perfect for the group of guys that he was with. He was able to get a Dennis Rodman to just play basketball and just to play his role and appreciate. Because here's what people don't know, and this may be a little off topic, but here's what people don't realize. People say Dennis Rodman could score before he came to Detroit. Dennis Rodman used to knock down the little 10, 15-footer. People don't know that. If you really go back and do your research, he used to knock that down. What Dennis Rodman decided was, he said, I want to make money like Isaiah, like the guys that are at the best at what they do. So Dennis Rodman made a conscious decision that he was going to focus on defense and rebounding, right? But I think a lot of that came from just watching Isaiah, and his leadership and doing what he did and being the best at what he did in his craft.
It's interesting. You bring up Rodman, 6'8", maybe 6'9", so it wasn't the tallest, very long arms, but he learned a skill set that he mastered. He would jump twice. He would tip the ball, or someone that he was battling for, he would try to tip the ball away from them and then get up in the air again. He would jump twice. And then the second time is when he would get that rebound. He'd make sure you didn't get it on the first one, and then he would jump in the air before you got a chance to, because he knew he was going to do that. That was part of his strategy. He would watch how other people would shoot in warmups and see where they would miss from. Where were they shooting from? Where would the miss go? And then he would study that. It's amazing. He'd do that with his own players, and he always knew where he had a better chance of knowing where the rebound was. So Rodman's a totally different story for another time. Let me ask you this. Vincent made a question or brought up a point that was of interest. Well, we didn't have a Worthy. You drafted who you drafted. You had Dumars. You used to have Aguirre. You traded him in Tripucka. You bring in Mahorn. You've got Lane Beer. You've got Vinnie Johnson. You built the team based on what you thought it was. You weren't going to score 120 points a night, but you weren't going to give up more than 89. They built that team around their abilities, their strengths. Brian, your thoughts before we go on to Magic, your thoughts about, taking what you've got and taking advantage of it in a way that made Isaiah really the right leader for that team.
Yeah, great. Again, a great point. And that's why I say Chuck Daly deserves that credit. Now, Isaiah was the leader of those men, but to take what you had, right, and to mold it and to shape it, that's the job of the coach. That's not the job of the point guard. The point guard just carries out the mission that the coach lays, right? And Isaiah was the perfect guy to do that, coming up from up under Bobby Knight. He was a hard-nosed, tough-nosed guy. So those are the type of players that they had, and they played that type of ball. And so Isaiah was the consummate leader for that situation. But I think the statement that you just made, Harper, all that goes to the credit of Chuck Daly and the ownership and the general manager of constructing that team and the vision that they have for that team.
Yeah, I don't have a bunch of guys that can run up and down the court. They'll tire out. They're just not built like that. So we're gonna play massive defensive, shut you down, hurt you, bruise you, make every 2 points that you score a very difficult 2 points. Vincent, tell me where I'm right in what they did there, but how could they have improved that in Detroit and gotten better a little bit earlier in Isaiah's career?
Well, y'all just said, y'all brought up 2 good points. When you're building an organization and you're losing, and Brian, you know this, and Harper, you know this, is that you got to find the right people that's going to fit the pieces. And when you look at Detroit, it's going to take them time to build. And a lot of times when you bring players in, when you already got players that is getting shots like a Kelly Tripucka, see, Isaiah had to deal with that early on in his career. Well, Magic didn't. Magic was a point guard where he was the guy that was getting the ball to people. Well, Isaiah, they was bringing in a point guard, but Isaiah also had to score. And he had to share the ball, and that was a problem in Detroit. But at the end of it all day, I would say this. When you're building teams, and I've never been a coach, I've never been a professional athlete, I know this, is that you got to have the right chemistry and the right people that's going to buy in.
Right.
And Detroit, as you said, Harper they weren't going to be a team to run up down the floor. They was going to be a team that was going to beat you up defensively. Because let's face reality, they wasn't as athletic as those Chicago teams. And they had to get big and strong on front because they had to deal with the Celtics, Walton, McHale, Parrish, and they had the guy from French Lick, who's a pretty good player in Larry Bird.
Pretty good.
So their development was different. Then in the West, you had the freestyling Supersonics. I can't remember who they had. You had the Suns. You had the Rockets that came and caused some problems with Akeem and Sampson later. But the lane was wide open for the Lakers to dominate. Wide open. Can I say it again? Lane wide open over in the West. I'm finished.
All right. Well, do me a favor. Let's switch this around. We talked a little bit about Isaiah. Give me some of the great points that Magic had. We've already talked to Brian a little bit about that. We'll confirm on that in a second. But Vincent, why would Magic be in that upper atmosphere in terms of his talent, his ability, the things that he was able to do. We talked about leadership, but what is a quality that you like about Magic Johnson that would, if he were in Detroit, you would say, man, this would help change our organization forever?
Well, number one, Brian is right. He was a winner. He won a state championship in high school. He went to Michigan State. Michigan State wouldn't win nothing. In his second year, he took him to the finals and won a national championship. But then in his rookie year, he became an NBA champion, NBA MVP. Make no mistake, I'm not saying that Magic Johnson doesn't need to be included in the top 5 or top 3. I'm just saying here today, I would take Isaiah over Magic. Magic probably make my number 2 list. And I will give you this. It's hard when you're 20-year-old. He faced some challenges out there in L.A. L.A. is a different animal. You from that area, Harper. It's about all expectations. It's Hollywood. It's a microscope on the Lakers. It's a microscope on the Rams. It's a microscope on USC football and UCLA basketball. So he went into a situation he had to be good from the start. And he brought some flash to the game, showtime. It's no question about it. I respect him as one of the greatest players that ever played the game. And he's been, I don't want to bring this up, but I give credit today. He's been a very excellent businessman. That's really surprised me is what he's done off courts. You're right. Everywhere he's touched, they become winners. Look what the Washington Commanders are doing. I got to give Brian credit there. That's a strong statement. But today, for me, the argument today in our topic, the greatest point guards of all time, who's number 1 on your list, and I'm taking Isaiah Thomas. But make no mistake, I'm not going to disrespect Magic Johnson and what he's done in the NBA. And I would say this about Magic, what I really liked about him. He's proven that a guy 6'8" or 6'9" can play the point guard position. Because back when I came up, a 6'8", 6'9" guy was not even playing point guard. Tell you a true story. At Southside High School, back in 1977, first day of class, my real good friend, Eric Adams, has people he visit in Detroit. He comes back, we're in the lunchroom at lunchtime. He said, man, I'm going to tell y'all something I've never seen in my life. There's a guy that's a 6'8" point guard that's in East Lansing, Michigan. We looked at him like he was insane. Nah, man, nah. He said, remember this name. Magic was a senior this year. Irvin Magic Johnson. Mm-hmm. And the rest is history. Magic made it where guys of his size can play the position at a high level. Made it well for one of the greatest players that ever came out of Memphis, Tennessee, and Penny Hardaway. Penny Hardaway playing point guard at 6'7". That's what I really respect about Magic Johnson and love what he's done for the game. And that's all I have to say. Ben Simmons, 6'8" point guard, even though he hasn't really played to that level. But I'm just saying, guys his size playing at a high level, being able to handle the ball.
Brian, if you were to take Magic's talent, his skill, you put it in Detroit. We've already discussed that a little bit, but tell me why what Magic did, it makes Isaiah or Allen Iverson or Nash or Curry, what makes him different for you?
Yeah, just his leadership. Like as a point guard myself when I was young, and as a coach who really focused on the point guard position, you got to have somebody on the court. If I'm gonna put the ball in your hands, not only do you have to have the ability to make the plays, right, but you got to make good decisions. And your teammates have got to trust you. Your teammates have got to want to see you with the ball. Those Laker teams, man, like they're gonna find Magic, man, right away. Now, not to say Detroit didn't do that. They with Isaiah, they did too. But Magic, when you think of the Lakers, man, that's the only person you think about is Magic Johnson. And when you think of point guards, when the world thinks of point guards, I promise you, they don't think of Isaiah Thomas first. Now, the people in Detroit might, but the world does not think of Isaiah Thomas. The world thinks of Magic Johnson first, right? And the reason why I think of him first is because of his ability to electrify the people around him. he made the people around him feel good about themselves. He made Kurt Rambis effective. He made Kurt Rambis effective more than just defensively. Kurt Rambis was almost like Worthy on the break. Kurt Rambis would get out there on that break because why? Because he knows Magic gonna find him. Right? Kareem was a great passer, not just because of his size and ability to pass out of double teams, but because of Magic Johnson's ability to create that passing mentality. Right? As a point guard, I set the tone for how the ball's going to move. I set the tone for who we're going to be as decision makers with the ball. Kareem could have taken a shot every time he got the ball if he wanted to. But if you go back and watch them films, Kareem was very unselfish with the ball. Magic Johnson, as a point guard, very unselfish. As a leader, the guy that you want to lead your team, he's leading the league in assists every year. And as a point guard, you know, my leader, I got a leader that can play center if he has to. So as the head of household, as the CEO of a company, as whatever, my leader got to be able to do whatever I need to get done. That's Magic Johnson. You know, so for me, man, he checks all the boxes and even some boxes that we probably didn't think of.
Couple things of interest. You mentioned something about Kareem and his passing. He learned that at UCLA. Hey, guess what, Lewis, is what John Wooden would probably say to him. When you get double teamed, there are going to be 3 other defenders, and we've got 4 guys on offense. Why don't you find the one that's open? We're going to score. Kareem took that into his professional career as well. I know he did in Milwaukee, and he was able to do that in LA. Kareem never, ever was a wing on a fast break. So it was really Magic and 3 others. And he was able to get the ball. You had an interesting point a little bit earlier, and please forgive me. I'm not trying to show my bias, but yeah, Magic was number 1 for me because he changed the game. He took a street game that you could see in full court in New York or Los Angeles or anywhere in between where you've got 5-on-5 and we're going to run it because we can. He made the game different at a time that it needed to be different. Not just the rivalry with Bird, but just the way that the game sped up because of the way he would take that fast break. Other teams would fast break, but the Lakers took it to a different level where they did it all the time. Isaiah would run with you, absolutely, but the rest of his teammates couldn't do it. Laimbeer couldn't run the fast break. He would once or twice, but he couldn't do it every possession. So I'm just pointing out a couple things that our listeners can think about. You mentioned the business and all that and the money. And I think Magic's ability to get the ball to somebody different every night, whoever had the hot hand, for him to know how to do that. I thought that was a pretty unique trait. Did Isaiah have the same thing? Absolutely. I don't know if one had more than the other, but I think those are 2 important parts of the leadership that you discussed. Both of you were talking about. He was the leader for my team, Detroit and Isaiah, or the Lakers and Magic. Who has the hot hand? If it's me, I'm going to take the shot. If it's somebody else, I'm going to make sure we do everything we can to get them the ball so that we can have a better chance of scoring. Those are just some of my points. Final thoughts, Vincent. We're going to let you go first, and then Brian will go second. And then, Vincent, I'll give you a chance to have the final word. But for initial right now, your thoughts.
And we can sit here all day and argue about who's the greatest between those 2 individuals, but they were great players, no question about it. Both of them are going to always be remembered in NBA history. But I want to pick it back on one point, and I'm going to leave it at this. Brian, you said that the world know Magic Johnson when you mentioned point guards. Well, before we had this topic today, in about 2 weeks, I've asked several people in the field, within my job, within my family. Opie Turner from Memphis, Tennessee. Ronnie Keebler from Brooklyn, New York. Elias Petey's from Boston, Mass. And Earl Flowers from Gulfport, Mississippi, who grew up with AKA Chris Jackson. And all of them gave me a resounding 5-0 vote. If they had to start an NBA franchise, they would go with Isaiah Thomas. So I'm going to leave it at that. I think it's been a great conversation. I don't have to say no more. This could be a topic that we can talk about for years until we go to glory. But different people have their own preference. Different people have their own mind. We're going to love certain players that we're going to always take to our grave. I'm just saying, in my opinion, Isaiah Thomas is a point guard. And I'm going to say this. There's a lot of people that don't like Isaiah from an NBA standpoint, since we're going to start going in and talking about personal things. And I understand that. That's why Isaiah Thomas doesn't get a lot of respect, I think, is what he's done in the NBA. But at the end of the day, I will still take him over everybody that's played this great game. And he wasn't a big guy, only 6'1", but tough as nails, a fighter, a grinder. And he went to an organization that wasn't winning. And I'm always going to hold this over Magic Johnson. You came into an ideal situation, man. An organization that was winning. Chamberlain, West, Riley. You can't change that. You can't change that. Since you're saying I'm repeating myself as Mr. Barkley today. But those are the facts. That's in black and white. And you had the greatest player at the center position that some people even say today, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Bill Laimbeer, James Edwards, and Rick Mahorn can't even carry Kareem's shoes or his socks. So think about that. You had 2 top 50 players and James Worthy. Oh, my God. If Worthy wouldn't have became a Laker and went somewhere else, we'd be talking about James Worthy in a different aspect, because Worthy was one of the best on that block. And you know that. You know that, since you say I'm repeating. Y'all have a blessed day. That's my final words from Vincent Turner, the 901, Memphis, Tennessee.
All right, Brian, there's a lot out there. I just asked final thoughts. What are you thinking?
Yeah, my final thoughts would be all those esteemed men that you mentioned, that would take Isaiah over Magic. They would have 2 rings and I'd have 5. So you keep on talking to them and they can say what they want to say. They got 2 rings. Yeah. So that's my rebuttal to that. But no, Isaiah's my guy as well. This conversation, man, when you start talking about the best, the one thing that I would say is that, it's all in fun and
Yes,
everybody has their own opinions. And when you say the best, you have to choose one. It doesn't mean that you don't like the other. It's just you have to choose one. And so just like I'm gonna choose Jordan over LeBron, doesn't mean I don't love LeBron. I love LeBron. You have to. If you love basketball, you gotta love LeBron. Same thing with this. If I'm choosing a point guard, I'm taking Magic Johnson. He's a proven winner on, off the court. It's proven in how his players speak about him and talk about him, how other players in the league talk about him, how he's received even after his situation with the AIDS thing and how that went down and how people questioned this and that. But then after that, what did he do? As a leader, what did he do? Let me go out in front of the world and speak about this. Let me help educate the world. That's part of his leadership. That's why he's a winner, because he's a leader. He took situations head on. You might say he's responsible for Paul Westhead getting fired. Well, he's a leader. He knew that we needed to change. We need to change the leadership. If you want me to run this thing, if you trust me to run this thing, we need somebody else. So Pat Riley came in. So you said that Pat Riley was there before. Pat Riley wasn't there before Magic. So we'll clean that up. But
yes, he was. He was a member of the Lakers. I'm talking about he was a player. A player.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about head coach.
Tea leaves.
I got you.
You messing with the wrong one.
No, I thought you were talking about head coach.
You messing with the wrong one.
I got you. I got you.
Player. He was a player with the Lakers.
I know that, but I thought you were talking about coach. My fault.
No. I didn't mention coach.
Got you. Okay, so yeah, I'm taking Magic simply because in every aspect, he's just a true leader, and you can tell he galvanizes, the people around him. He captivates, the audience, and I just think he's the best. Period.
Vincent, been a very interesting show. No wrong answers, but what do you got? 5 versus 2? That's the math. I'm not real good at math, but I know this is more than this, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
That's pretty simple math. Before we go, Vincent, your final thoughts for the day.
Hey, it was enjoyable, man. This is how sports talk, where you talking any subject, this is how it's supposed to go. True facts, able to bag it up, and able to live and be there in situations. That's what I enjoy today. See, Bryan has been in the fire. He's been a coach. You've been an athlete at a high level, Harper. It doesn't get no better than that. The 901 is on fire today. That's my final words today, Vincent Turner. I want to say thank you to Mr. Bryan Spencer. He looked mad over there, but I don't care. But that's it. That's the end of the day. At the end of the day, you know I got love for you, Harper. Let's give special thanks to our producer who's making it happen today, Mr. Logan Landers. Thank you so much. But outstanding topic, man, and hopefully we're gonna start our basketball segment back here on 100 Yards Football, and hopefully Coach Spencer can be a part of it, because I definitely, when I want to talk about the college teams throughout the season, that's who I go to him. When I want to know who's on the bubble and the 64, that's who I go to. And most of all, what I like about Bryan, what I love about him, he always gives me the insight. Hey, man, what's going on with the team? Is there problems with the team? He could tell me right then and there. And 99% of the time, he's telling the truth.
Well, you just told me that Bryan only lies 1% of the time. So we got to work on that a little bit. All right. Bryan, thank you for being a special guest on this show. It's been a great debate. There's no wrong answers, but everybody I'm sure that was paying attention here today is going, I hadn't thought about it that way before. And that's why this is so much fun. For Logan Landers and for Vincent Barkley Turner, we got a new nickname for Vincent now. And he's going to repeat himself every now and then, at least get called out for that. I'm Harper LeBel. Thank you for tuning in to our special basketball edition of 100 Yards of Football. We hope you have a wonderful day. Subscribe or like if you choose. We really appreciate it if you would do that. But for the show, we want to say thank you for tuning in. Have a great day, everybody.